Happy Fantastic Friday. We're glad you made it back again. Beci Rohkohl here, Master Gardener. And this week, we're going to go over a few more tips from this Master Gardener and a few more ways to give your seeds the best start that they can get. So seed starting is not necessarily an art, but there are some things you need to consider. And let's talk about what kinds of seeds first. And yes, there are different kinds of seeds. Heritage seeds, there are organic seeds, and there are hybrid seeds. And I know you can get lost in the jargon. The heritage seeds can date back to 2,000 years ago. And there's actually several different companies that just sell heritage seeds. I know Annie's Heirlooms is one of them. She sells really good seeds. They're really reasonable price too. And organic means that usually it's a heritage seed and it hasn't had any pesticides. So there weren't any pesticides used on it, and the farm that it grows on doesn't have any pesticides with it. Hybrid is a different kind of seed. Now this is usually a cross-pollination from one heritage seed to another type of seed, and they're usually more expensive, and there are a couple things about them that you really need to know. That not only are they a little bit more expensive, but they're not actually an heirloom anymore. That's one. And there's no way to tell if it says that it's hybrid, that if there were any pesticides around it. And it's very unlikely that you will be able to use the seeds from the plants this year to grow plants next year. That's what's called seed saving. Seed saving is very important, and there's seed banks all over the world in these communities that value the seeds that they save. They even trade them. And it's really cool to get into a seed bank that you can trade with others. It's great if you're starting off because these folks know a lot about their seeds. They usually plant just like one crop or two crops, and then the next year they trade off to another one. And they're a great source of information for you. So find them, meet them, share the seeds, especially heritage seeds. And on a more personal note, I believe that the heritage seeds are tastier. They have a stronger flavor when you plant them and grow them. And I love the fact that I can save my seeds and use them next year. And at the end of the sequence of gardening, when we get to the end of the year, we'll talk about how you save seeds on certain plants, because everything's just a little bit different, right? So I love to be able to save my seeds and plant them next year, because then it doesn't cost me anything for seeds, right? So here's some seed packets, and I want you to take a look at these seeds packets in order to give the best plants the opportunity to grow. And when you go to buy your seeds, you'll look at the packet and the information. And they're like looking at food labels. And I know that sometimes that cannot be a lot of fun, but it's important to know what it says on there. Like I said, what kind of seed is it? The germination time. And germination time means how long before it breaks through the soil, how long before it actually starts growing a plant. Some of them can be 21 days, and at 14 days you might be going, well, where's my plant? And stop watering. Well, you haven't given it the opportunity to actually break through the soil yet. So how long you can expect to before it actually breaks through. Germination rate is a percentage of about 100. How many will break through the soil? Now, you'd like to say that it's 100%, but nothing is 100%, right? So what you've got to watch for is a low germination rate. One of the very low germination rates that I found is, for instance, lavender. Very hard to grow from a seed. The germination rate on it is probably 35%. So you get a lot of crops that won't come through. And once they do come through, the likelihood of them of living is very difficult. So if you can get something that's over 75%, you probably have a good chance. Oftentimes when I plant, I'll put 2 seeds in one hole, if I have enough seeds to do that, because if they both spring up, I can always pull one out. Okay, so I can thin it. Okay, your package will also say how far apart to space the plants, and that's important. Not if you plant them too far apart, you're just going to waste more more space in your garden. But if you plant them too close together, they don't get a chance to break through the soil and spread out like they need to and be able to flower in the way they need to and grow fully. Placement, it'll tell you, does it go in the sun? Does it go in the shade? Can it be partial shade, partial sun? No, the temperature, no lower than. A lot of ones will say don't plant below a certain degree. And just because they sell the seed in the store doesn't mean that the seed is good for this area. So there might be a map on there that says what zone and what time of the year to plant. Some of them, they're winter seeds, some of them are summer seeds. Some of them you can grow in areas like here in San Diego. You can grow them more than once a year because the temperature is the right temperature. So sometimes, like broccoli, we have broccoli in our garden right now and it tastes really good. And we'll also have broccoli at the end of the year, but not the same plants, because during the summer it gets too hot for the broccoli, so it won't grow as well. So all of this information you're reading, just like your food labels, all of it matters. So when you look at it, take a look at what all these things mean. If you have questions, you can always send me an email and ask me. But you want to give your garden the best start, right? So that you can start your seeds indoors, because it'll even say on there how long, like I said, it takes to start them. For instance, tomato plants, it's absolutely great to start tomato plants inside. If they can get a good 8 to 10 weeks inside before they go outside, they'll just grow like weeds when they get out there. They just really grow up high and fast, and you get a lot more because not only did you start them earlier and protected them from the weather outside, you also gave them a chance to get strong roots. And that root system will help them grow longer and grow bigger and have more fruit on it. Well, fruit, right? Tomato fruit. So you want to start anything indoors that takes a longer time to grow, or it needs warmer temperatures. And our farm up in Overgard, we could always, even though it snowed, start our onions in January. Onions the starts can go in the ground and stay in the ground for months because it takes them a long time. We had a very short growing season up there, 90 days if we were lucky and we didn't have a freak weather storm come through and freeze things out. We had 90 days barely. So we always had a living room full of shelves with starts in them, and except for the ones that could go straight in the ground like the onions. Any kind of pepper, bell pepper or hot pepper, they love the heat. They want to be started indoors and they want to be hot. So you don't want to really put them out till it starts really getting hot outside. They like sun and heat. And our family reuses our containers when we garden. So you know how you'll go to the store, and I'll show you some examples here of containers, and you'll buy maybe a 6-pack of some kind of flower, magnolia or something. You can save those containers and wash them out, and you can use them to put the soil in to start the seeds the next year. We've also used things like solo cups with holes in the bottom of them. Anything that will drain the water off, we put a tray underneath it. As you'll see when the girls plant the seeds, we put a tray underneath it and so the water collects there. Don't let them sit in water, but give them enough that the soil stays moist, and it gives the seed a chance to germinate. We can't make them grow, right? It's like a person. We can't say, hey, you're going to grow. But we can provide the best conditions for them to grow with this great soil, the sunlight, and the keeping them wet. And then, prayer doesn't hurt at all. So we always say a few prayers for them. And kind words. They've actually proven that kind words to plants actually helps them grow. So we have our beds made. It's settled. We talked about that last week, and we're getting excited. But here's the trick: some of them can go straight into the ground, and some of them don't. And like I said, that's because of the heat. All those things written on that label, that'll tell you. I put carrots straight in the ground. I put squash straight in the ground. It takes a little while for it to grow. It doesn't bud up until it's actually going pretty good. So it doesn't bother me if it sits outside, as long as I know it's protected from the pests. The more the hotter it is outside, the more water they need, right? That's a given. Just like us, we're like people, right? When we're outside working, we need more water when we're working outside. So be sure that in order to produce a good harvest, your water is consistent and enough. If you ever notice that your tomatoes look like they're starting to split down the side, that's because some days it got more water than the other days it got water. So that's because if it wasn't consistent, then you're not going to have that consistent looking fruit. Not that the taste won't taste good, because it still tastes good, but it always is nice to have something really pretty to look at when you eat, right? So it's been our experience that watering system is very important. We tried to hand water a very large garden for a long time, and this is where I'm telling you it doesn't work when you're trying to hand water. You get those splits in the tomatoes. You get some that work and some that don't, and then you can even lose some veggies that way. But in order to keep them safe from the heat, look at some kind of a watering system so you're not hand watering. If it's a small garden, then it really doesn't matter. Hand watering's kind of fun. If it's an herb garden inside, you've got it right there in front of you, right? So you're starting everything indoors, and so you have a longer growing season, and your temperatures, you can start them in there. And I talked about earlier about lavender being really hard to sow from seed. That's not the only one. Research is your best friend right now. If you want to plant a garden and there's something that you're like, hey, I really think that I'd like to grow such and such. If you don't want to buy it and you want to try it from seed, look online and see how hard it is. See what other people are doing and if they're able to grow it from seed very well. You can always test your germination rate by putting, wetting a napkin, putting some seeds on there, misting it off, putting inside a Ziploc bag inside the refrigerator. You leave it there for about 7 to 10 days, and whatever starts to grow and be green, the percentage of it, that's about what you're going to get for the seeds. Okay, so that way you can test to see your germination rate. If you found some seeds that you think might be old and they're for some reason not dated, which they usually are now, that's the way to test the germination rate. Okay, you can get a better start with lavender if it's something that you really want to do, and I can show you how to do that. You propagate the lavender. You actually take a piece of the stem of the lavender and you clean off some of the leaves and you put some rooting material and you put it in fresh dirt and you keep it nice and moist for about 2 months, and you've got a new lavender plant growing roots. Okay, this is really great if you want to start put lavender all around your house. You can even do culinary lavender or just decorative lavender this way. Either way, the thing to remember is the plant actually can't go in the ground for the first year. So you'll have to have a place inside to keep it safe. Those babies don't last really well outside. We've had a couple friends that had lavender farms, and this is how we know for a fact that this is how they do it. So warning, no matter if you start them inside or right in the dirt, the pests love your garden. And I'm not just talking about the bugs, I'm talking about the critters, okay? Always, you have choices for pesticides. There's natural ways. There's a lot of them online to keep the bugs off them. There's companion gardening that helps keep the bugs off of them. And so you can look those ways up too. We always cage everything until it gets as tall as the cage. And our cages are probably 10 inches or a foot tall is all. Just a piece of, like I said, that wire that we buy, that stucco wire, and turn into a little cage over the top. Once the plant gets that big, usually the animals leave it alone. When you're starting it indoors, light water, heat if necessary, lights if you don't have enough light at your house. If you're trying to start it next to a window, it's great. If you're not putting it next to a window, then you need to give it a grow light of some sort, because it needs to have, most plants need to have light 8 to 10 hours a day. So if you don't give it enough light by putting it by a window, make sure that it does have that. Lots of people put shelves. I'm going to show you some different kind of shelves here. Really inventive ways to grow things. People are using rain gutters. People are putting vertical gardens. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to maximize the space. I've even seen people with barrels that have strawberries growing out, like a really big strawberry barrel, but it's a 55-gallon drum barrel that they've used to put the strawberries in, or whatever, lettuce, or easy things to grow like that. So Miracle's going to show you a way, if you don't have any little pots, she's going to show you a way to make your own little pots out of paper pots. So you'll watch that now. If you're not sure that you want to use the paper pots, that's fine. Like I said, you can use the solo cups like we were talking about. If there's something that you want to plant that you don't want to disturb the roots, because some of the plants don't want you to disturb the roots. A tomato plant's not so sensitive that you can't pop it out of the container it's in and plant it in the ground. But there are some that don't like being transplanted. So put them in something that's biodegradable, a toilet paper roll, a paper towel roll. Some people I've even seen use ice cream cones, and those little old-fashioned ice cream cones, they put the dirt right in there and water it in there, and when the plant gets big enough, they just plant the whole cone. I've seen some people say that they can do it with eggshells. I'm not really sure that has enough of a root system space, but there's a lot of different ways that you can do that to so that you don't have to disturb the roots. Any pot will work. The best ones are compostable. Like I said, you can just plant them right inside the garden. Try not to disturb those roots. Now, it'll tell you in there, if it's going to tell you to start them early, it'll tell you in there, plan to start them inside and grow them for 6 weeks. I would say 7 weeks, okay? And I'm only telling you that because there is a period of time between the house and the garden that you have to do a special trick. And we will talk about that next week on our show. Here's the thing. Come to Agape in Action. This Saturday, that is tomorrow, at Wells Park in El Cajon, 1153 East Madison Avenue. We've got seeds for you. You can come and pick up some carrot seeds. You can come and pick up tomatoes or hot peppers, or I don't even know. The girls went crazy making all these little seed packets for you guys. So come and show up, come and pray with us, pick up some seeds, and have a little bit of time. If you have a question about the garden, see me, Beci Rohkohl, and I'll help you with it. We'll see you next week.